Into your presence you draw us, and now by your grace we come.
If you would open that book and fill out the information on the inside of that book, we really would appreciate your help with that. We're thankful to have you with us today, and we just want to have record of your attendance, so that's why we ask you to do that. After that book has made it all the way to the right end of the pew, if you'll pass it back to the left, we'll pick those books up in just a moment. Also in that book is a prayer request card. We would love to be praying for you this week. If you would fill out that card, let us know what we can be praying about, who we can be praying for. We would be honored to do that. You can drop those prayer cards in the drop boxes up here at the front as you leave worship, or back in the back. Either way, and our ministry staff, our shepherds, and other prayer groups will pray for what you put on those cards this week. So we hope you'll give us a chance to do that. To our guests, again, we want to say one more time how thankful we are to have you with us today. We want to invite you to come back and join us. Every Sunday morning at 9:35, we have what we call First Cup. That's just a casual opportunity for you to sit with a couple of our ministry staff, a couple of our members, get to know this Memorial Road family a little better, ask questions about this family. Maybe you've been coming for a while, you're ready to take the next step here at Memorial Road. That's a great place to do that. So we hope you'll come back and join us for First Cup as soon as you have a chance to do that. We really would love to have you. Well, we have a lot of things we need to be praying about, obviously. Folks in our church family who have lost loved ones. Obviously, we have a lot of our church family who are beginning the summer routine of traveling a lot and going to camps. Our Inside Out folks, little kids camp, left today. They all went down to Norman, to Rock Creek, and they have started that camp. And so we certainly want to be praying for all of those folks. Our juniors and seniors are headed to Honduras on Friday, and so we certainly want to remember them. They have about 80 students and sponsors going on that trip, so that's a lot of folks to take to another country, and so we certainly want to be praying for them as well. And then obviously we want to be praying for those who have suffered property damage and physical, personal injury with the storms that have been going around lately. Last night and the past few weeks, we all know someone who's been affected by that. And we want you to know that there are some ways that we can be involved to help in that relief. I want to let you know, if you don't already know, that today is the blood drive taking place. Because of all the storms, the blood supply is really critically low, and so we have an opportunity here at Memorial Road today to help with that. So if you haven't already given blood, we hope that you'll stick around after worship until 12:30. You can give blood. That's out to the other building, to the summit. You can go over there, and they are waiting for you and ready. Critical time. If you can help with that, we would appreciate that. And then our disaster relief team have been out and about helping, making contact with churches in different areas, finding out how we can help, and helping out with victims. And so we want to be praying for that group as well. And we will be collecting funds to help donate to that ministry and to areas that have been hit hard with these storms. So be listening, be looking for ways to do that. We'll give you a specific opportunity next week to bring money, to make your checks to Memorial Road Church of Christ. Our elders will be stationed at these exits. You can hand them cash, you can hand them a check, and that will go directly to help with relief efforts around our area. So be looking for that. You'll get more information about that this next week, but be making plans to help with that. You can also give those checks or that money to Tammy McKeever as well anytime. So we hope you'll take advantage of those opportunities. Well, we obviously want to be mindful today, as Steve mentioned already, that this weekend and tomorrow specifically, we remember by celebrating Memorial Day, and we remember those folks, those men and women who gave their lives so that we would have the freedom to be right where we are today, and we don't take that for granted. So we want to certainly remember them. We will not forget, and we don't forget those in this room who have been personally affected by losing a family member, a close friend, someone serving our country. So we sure want to remember that. In fact, if we could, let's take a moment just to of silence, just to remember that and to thank God for the freedoms we have because of the sacrifices that were made. Let's pray together. Thank you for taking time to do that. We make sure those welcome books are back on the left end of the pew. Make sure those are picked up, taken to Information Central during this next song. And reminder to parents and kids, no Creation Station. They're on summer break, so make note of that. Remember that. Let's stand together, sing this next song. Phil will come share a message with us after. Precious cornerstone, sure foundation, you are faithful to the end. We are waiting on you, Jesus. We believe you're all to us. Let the glory of your name be the passion of the church. Let the righteousness of God be a holy flame that burns. Let the saving love of Christ be the measure of our life. We believe you're all to us. Holy Son of God, sent from heaven, hope and mercy at the cross. You are everything. You're the promise. Jesus, you are all to us. Let the glory of your name be the passion of the church. Let the righteousness of God be a holy flame that burns. Let the saving love of Christ be the measure of our life. We believe you're all to us. You're all to us. You're all to us. You're all to us. Yes, you are. You are. You're all to us. You're all to us. You're all to us. You are. When this passing world is over, and be seated.
Good morning, church. I want to echo what Scott said just a moment ago, and what Steve said. This is a really important weekend, and we are, in many ways, thinking of and remembering those who have gone before us. And I appreciate the moment of silence. I think that's really important, to have time to pause. It's in those moments of reflection and silence that I think we really learn to be grateful for the things that we have. So thank you for leading us in a moment of silence. So if you are new here, my name is Phil Brookman, and today I'm starting a new series called Home Improvement, and I'll get into that in just a moment. If you think about home, you will spend more time at home than any other place in your entire life. Now, home changes from one season to another. So you have a childhood home, maybe you have a neighborhood home, you have an apartment home, maybe you have a vacation home, a suburban home. I even got a letter this week from a guy that used to live in this city, and he had a season of life where he was homeless. So his home for a while was actually the alley behind Hobby Lobby. So it's pretty different. So your home is going to change depending on what season of life you're in, but overall, you will spend more time at home than in any other place in life. You'll spend more time at home than your workplace. You'll spend more time at home than you will at church. You'll spend more time at home than you will hanging out with friends. The Census Bureau a few years ago put out some stats on what we do with our time. And one, they told us that the average American works 44 hours a week. And they also tell us that you will spend between 15 and 20 hours just running errands. Going to the store, going to church, going to this party, going to this event. And so if you put those together and then subtract that from the 168 hours we get per week, then that means that generally speaking, roughly, you're going to have 100 hours every week. And you're going to be at home. Now, if you project that out for the course of your life, then that means that if you live to the average life expectancy these days, then you will spend 40 to 50 years at home. Now, that means a lot of things. Well, one thing that means, on a positive side of things, is that this creates a wonderful opportunity for lots of really, really good memories to be made. So, for example, I read this story just recently about this couple from Utah, Ben and Jackie, and Ben's parents had given him season football tickets for his favorite team, and he couldn't afford it. And so he and Jackie, over the course of several months, started saving up enough money to pay back his parents. Well, after they had saved up quite a bit of money, they were going to give this money to his parents. And Jackie started looking for the envelope that they had kept the money in, and she couldn't find the envelope anywhere. And she turned the house upside down, was looking in cabinets and pulling out drawers, could not find the money. Jackie has a toddler, and Jackie has a paper shredder. And so she starts putting things together, and she goes and she looks in the paper shredder, and she sees something she will never forget. $1,000 cut into 1,000 pieces. But that's just home. That's just home for you. It's where we make our memories. You've got stories like that too. You probably remember, for those of you who are parents, you remember the first steps that your toddler ever took. That was probably at home. You might remember as a teenager, maybe the very first time that you sat on a couch next to someone that you had a crush on, and you held her hand or you held his hand while you watched that movie. That probably happened at home. Home memory. Just so now my wife and kids have gone to Inside Out camp, so I am just at home right now with a snake, like somewhere in my house. But that's home. Like, we all have these memories. We have so much time that we get to spend at home. But here's something, regardless of what your home is right now, regardless of what it's been in the past or what it's been in the future, here is something that will always be true of home. The culture of your home will determine the quality of your life. And so if your home is full of a good, vibrant, wonderful culture, then that's going to resonate with you and that will shape you. But if your home life is destructive, and if it's tense, and if there's a lot of anxiety going on at home, that's going to affect the quality of your whole life. Think about the educational system for a moment. When a young person at school starts misbehaving, what do teachers and administrators often assume is going on? They will assume, well, there must be something wrong in the home life. This child must have a difficult home life. There must be stress, there must be anxiety, maybe there's abuse or neglect at home. And they're not right every time, but oftentimes those assumptions hold true. The culture of your home will affect the quality of your life. It's just math. If you're spending 100 hours at home, well, that really will start to change you and affect you and shape you over time. Now, am I saying that you can't overcome a negative home? No, I'm not saying that. Through the power of the Spirit, the power of the Word, the power of the Lord, we can overcome a negative home life. All I'm saying is that this force is extremely powerful. Who you are, in many ways, is determined by your home life, your character, your resilience, your confidence, or your lack thereof is all shaped by your home life. But for the most part, the world and all the people at work, and you smile, they've been there for, and then we get, don't say you're going to do something if you actually don't plan on doing it. Don't declare what you're not going to deliver. In fact, I want everybody to say this with me, the whole screen. Follow through. Do not declare what you cannot deliver. Let's say it again. Follow through. Do not declare what you cannot deliver. This applies in so many areas of life. First of all, this idea of follow through, it does apply to one's relationship with Jesus. I remember years ago, I was talking to a teenager and she was thinking about getting baptized. And she said, you know, Phil, I really want to follow Christ. I really want to give my life to Christ. I want to confess my sins. I want to believe in Him. I want to get baptized, but I'm not going to do that. And I said, why? Why would you not do that? And she was really honest with me. She said, because I'm not ready to give up the life I'm leading. I know that if I commit to following Jesus, I'm going to have to stop doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm not ready to do that. And so I'm not going to get baptized today. Now, I disagree with her lifestyle, but I really resonate with her honesty. She gets it, that when she declares that she's going to follow Christ, she's willing to back it up. You got to apply this to your relationship with Christ. I'll give you another area of life you should apply this principle to. I think you should apply this principle to your singing and your worship. We just sang a song in which one of the lyrics says, Lord, I offer my life to you. Wow. Like that's a pretty audacious thing to say, to sing. Well, how many of us, Sunday after Sunday, we sing these songs, we don't really think about what we're singing. Only declare what you plan to deliver. I'll give you another area of life. I want to camp out on this one for just a moment. We've got to apply this principle. Speaking of home, we've got to start applying this principle to our parenting. Parents, we must learn to follow through. This is especially true when it comes to discipline. I remember when my kids were really young, I got into the really bad habit of making empty threats. And so it went something like this. Kid would misbehave, and I would say, if you do that one more time, I'm going to send you to your room. And then they would do it again, and I'd say, well, if you do that one more time, if you say no one more time, if you knock your milk bottle off the high chair one more time. But the only problem is I kept saying one more time, but I probably said it 20 times. That's called an empty threat. And what I have learned is that children, they might not know a whole lot. When they're young, they don't know their ABCs, they can't feed themselves. But one thing that kids learn very quickly is children know their parents. And a child knows that if the parent doesn't follow through, the child's not going to listen to that parent. So if you don't follow through, your kids won't listen to you. Parents, if you don't follow through, your children, they will stop listening to you. And so if you want to make a change, parents, and immediately see results, here's what you do. Less talking, more doing. Don't declare what you can't deliver. Think about getting pulled over. What's more effective, a ticket or a warning? Well, a ticket, of course. When you get a ticket by the police officer, that hurts. Because then you have to go pay that, and that's $100 or that's $200 out of your bank account. For some of you, that's like $500, depending on how much you were speeding, out of your bank account. Well, that doesn't feel good. But when you get pulled over and the officer comes to your window and says, well, I'm going to give you a warning today, on the outside you smile and say, oh, I really appreciate that, officer. But on the inside you're going, yes, I won. And you don't listen to what the officer says, even if he gives you a stern lecture. You don't care. It's just yada, 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 yada. In your mind, you're thinking, I won. I'm not going to change my driving habits. I just beat the system. I'm going to take my warning and move on. Do you think your kids are any different than you? Of course not. Do not declare what you cannot deliver. When it comes to discipline, parents, we have got to learn to follow through. So I'll get really practical here. Jim Fay is a parenting expert. And early on, when I had my really bad habits going on about all these empty threats, I read something he said and I applied it to my parenting early on. So parents, listen to this because you can apply this at any life stage. Jim Fay says you need to start using enforceable statements. An enforceable statement is something you can say to a child that you can absolutely enforce. So I'll give you some examples here. So here's an example of something that is not an enforceable statement, and I find myself actually still saying this every once in a while. We're trying to leave, go somewhere, and I'll say something like, would you just stop piddling around? Would you get your backpack, get your shoes, come on, hurry up. How many times do I have to tell you? Get in the car. That is not an enforceable statement. Here's what is an enforceable statement. The car will leave at 8 o'clock. That's it. That's all you say. Now, to make it enforceable, what do you have to do at 8 o'clock? You got to leave, whether or not your child's in the car. So I read this from Jim Fay, and in the last few years, I've told this story, so I'll make it very brief. But so one of my big problems used to be that when I was at the park with my girls, we couldn't leave. Like I kept telling them, we got to leave, girls. We got to go, and they would not listen to me. So finally, one day, they're on the swings, and I just walk up, and I say, girls, I'm leaving. And I turned around, and I got in my car, and I left. Just drove away. I know, I'm a terrible father. Both my girls started running up the sidewalk screaming, Daddy, you've left us. Let me tell you, from that day forward, when I say, girls, I'm leaving, guess what they think? They know Daddy is leaving because it was an enforceable statement. I had control over whether or not I left in that car. Here's another one. Maybe parents, you found yourself saying something like this room's a disaster. How many times have I told you to clean your room? I can't even walk through your room. What is going on? Why won't you clean your room? That's called a rant. That is not an enforceable statement. Here's an enforceable statement. You are welcome to keep the toys that you pick up, and I am going to keep the toys or clothes that I pick up. That's an enforceable statement. Now, you have to follow through, but that's an enforceable statement. Maybe for you parents, it's about curfew, or maybe it's about them using the car. Maybe they get home at 11:30 and you say, I told you to be home at 11, and you didn't even call, and you didn't even text, and you're not even paying for your car. What are you doing? Well, that's not an enforceable statement. An enforceable statement might be, first of all, you're welcome to sleep here if you get here by 11. Just lock the doors. Or another one might be, I'll provide the car to those who have made a deposit equal to the insurance deductible. That's an enforceable statement. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Now let me flip this for a little bit. Kids in the room, this elementary, middle school, high school, even college if you're still living at home. Listen up for just a minute if you've been tuning me out. Kids, this principle Follow through, do not declare what you cannot deliver. It applies to you too. If you tell your mom or dad that you're going to be in a certain place at a certain time, be there. If you tell your mom or your dad that you're going to clean your room, clean it. And here's why. If you don't follow through with your parents, then your parents won't trust you. So if you say, Mom, I'm going to clean the room after I spend time at so-and-so's house, and then you don't do it. Or if you say, Mom, I'm definitely going to clean my room. I just need to finish this TV show first, and then you don't do it. If you don't follow through, then you tell your parents that you cannot be trusted. And kids, let me tell you, there's a day coming when you're going to want to ask your parents something a little bit bigger. Maybe you're going to want to ask your parents, hey, can I go to this concert with so-and-so? Hey, my friends are taking this trip to such and such place. Can I go? And if you haven't developed this trust with your parents, they're going to say no. So kids, you've got to learn to follow through with your parents. You can apply this to marriage. I won't talk about that this week, but you can also apply this to friendship. Here's the last area of life I want to apply this to. So the main point is, follow through, do not declare what you cannot deliver. You can apply this all over life, but when it specifically comes to your friendships, I want to give you something really specific to do with your friends. I want you to eliminate a phrase from your vocabulary for 1 month. It's an experiment. Here's the phrase that I want you to eliminate. Let's get together sometime. Don't say it. Here's why I don't want you to say it. Because it's a lie. It's a lie. Based on the prestigious Phil Brookman Research Institute, that promise is only delivered about 20% of the time. Think about how many times you've said that. Hey, we should get to lunch together sometime soon. We should hang out. And I get it, like you're saying it because you care about the person, you like the person, but you never follow through. And so for 1 month, don't say that. Instead, say something like, would you like to go to Starbucks at 3 o'clock on Thursday? Or, hey, McAllister's noon Friday. Or June 2nd, would you like to come over to my house for dinner? Or June 15th, hey, would you like to take a walk together? Get specific about your relational investment. Because what happens over time is if you never really mean what you say, then you don't get a lot of things done. Let me talk about finances for a minute, because there's a good metaphor here. Financially speaking, if you are pretty diligent with your money and you pay off your debt, you budget, you know what money's coming in, what money's going out. If you do that, number one, it is hard to do that, but in the long run, the people that are diligent with their finances end up being more generous than anybody else. In other words, you make more of a difference financially because you were diligent in the way that you budgeted. That exact principle can be applied to your calendar. Now, don't hear me saying that like this is the most important thing in the world. Organization is important, but it is not a fruit of the Spirit, so we don't want to go crazy on this one. However, I do think scheduling is a discipline. It's a discipline that when we practice it, we end up blessing a lot more people. The more diligent you are with your time, the more difference you actually make with your life. Planning leads to blessing. And so let's be the people that don't say, hey, we should get together sometime. Let's be the people that declare what we can deliver with our friends, and let's get it on the calendar. So flip this around for a minute. Imagine that you never applied this sermon, that you never followed through, that you just said things with no intention of actually doing them, like the man from the story that Jesus told. What would your life really be like? Well, for one, I can tell you that all your friends, or many of your friends and your family, they will start thinking of you as a flighty person. They'll start thinking of you as the one that always has a big talk but can never follow through. And what happens is nobody will count on you. If you don't follow through, nobody will count on you. And so you'll just live your life, and everybody's going to think you're a flighty person, and then you're going to die someday, and you're going to have a funeral, and people are going to come to your funeral, and do you really want to be remembered as a flighty person? Do you really want to be remembered as someone who would make one commitment here, but then something better came up over here, and so you ditched your first commitment to go to the second commitment? Do you really want to be known for that? You see, flighty people frustrate people. And so don't be known for that. What you really want to be known for is that person that was so honest and so loyal and so committed that whatever they said, they did it. You want to be known as a person that followed through. So, this week, I want you to follow through on something that you've been meaning to do for a long time. Maybe it's a conversation you're supposed to have, or maybe it's about fitness or diet. Just follow through on something that you've always planned to do. And I promise you, there's going to come a moment where you're going to have this critical decision like, do I make this call or not? Do I go to this program or not? And when it gets hard, because follow through is always hard. When it gets hard, I want you to remember two things. There's actually two names. When follow through gets hard, the first name I want you to remember is Francis, as in a guy named Clifton Francis. This guy is from India, and a few years ago, he's at a friend's house, and his friend asked him if he would go see the World Cup. And Clifton Francis said two very simple words. He said, "Of course." Now, Clifton is a man of his word. And so after he committed to going to the World Cup, he felt compelled to follow through. He was pretty poor. He had a job as a teacher, didn't make a lot of money, could not afford a plane ticket, could not afford gas to drive there. And so what Clifton did is he got on his bike and he rode from the capital of Iran to Moscow, 2,600 miles. Now, do I question his sanity? Absolutely. The guy's a nut. Would I want him as my friend? No, that's a little weird. That's just a little too much for me. However, I can't question the guy's commitment. He knows how to follow through. So if you find yourself this week struggling, like, I don't think I can follow through with this discipline with my child. I don't think I can follow through with this commitment I made with such and such person. Think Francis. The second person I want you to think of when you're struggling is I want you to think Jesus. So Jesus, towards the end of his life, he started telling people he was about to die. So he would pull his disciples aside and say, guys, I'm going to Jerusalem. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to die. And his disciples, if you remember, they're not having it. In fact, one time Peter comes up to Jesus and he's like, no, it's not going to happen. Never, Lord. He actually says, never, Lord, this shall never happen to you. And this is, by the way, this is exactly what you'd want your friend to do. You want the friend that's going to get with you in the middle of this mess and say, I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to be loyal. We're going to beat this together. Like Peter is being the best friend he could possibly be, saying, you're not going to die, Jesus. I'm not going to let it happen. Do you remember what Jesus said back to Peter? He said, get behind me what? Get behind me. He said, get behind me, Satan. See, Jesus recognized that was actually the voice of the enemy. And the voice of the enemy was saying, you should just settle. You should take the easy life over the hard death. You shouldn't do this. It's going to be really, really hard. You shouldn't follow through. But Jesus told that voice to be quiet because Jesus knew he'd given his word. And Jesus followed through. See, Jesus would only declare something if Jesus had planned on delivering it. And then the rest is history, that the kingdom is launched. Jesus dies on the cross. He saves humanity from their sins. He gives us the possibility of eternity with him. All that happens because Jesus followed through. If Jesus hadn't followed through, you'd be lost. I'd be lost. The world would be doomed. So when you are at that moment, I don't know if I can follow through. You think about what Jesus did for you. Some of you need to follow through today. Like some of you have actually been playing a mind game with God, and you've been saying in your head things like, you know what, God, someday I'm actually going to repair this relationship with so-and-so. Someday I'm going to give her a call, and I'm going to make this all right. Or maybe in your head you've been saying, God, I've been struggling with this secret sin for such a long time, but someday I'm actually going to get this sin into the light so that people can help me along with my spiritual journey. I'm just waiting for the right moment. Or maybe it's like, someday, Jesus, I think I am going to get baptized. I'm going to give my life to you, but you know what? I'm just not sure when that's going to come. So I'm just going to wait around, and someday when the right moment is there, then it'll happen. Let me just tell you, if you're thinking anything close to any of those thoughts, someday I'm going to do this, someday I'm going to do that, it's not going to happen. You're going to wait your whole life for the someday to come, and it's not going to happen because we don't just stumble into those moments. We make them. And so if you've been playing this mind game with God that, God, someday I'm going to do this or that, it's on you. You make the moment happen by following through. Do not declare what you cannot deliver. And so we're about to sing this song. And if you've got some follow through to do right now, then you can come tell me about whatever's going on in your life, and we'll help you today, we'll bless you today, we'll pray for you today. Let's stand and let's worship.
Everyone needs compassion, love that's never failing. Let mercy fall on me. Everyone needs forgiveness, the kindness of the Savior, the hope of nations. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. So take me as you find me. All my fears and failures. Fill my life again. I give my life to follow everything I believe in. Now I surrender. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Shine a light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shine a light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Well, thanks again for being with us, and have a safe weekend and Memorial Day tomorrow, and we hope that you'll come back. Join us again next Sunday. We'd love for you to do that. One of our shepherds, Jeff Simmons, is going to lead us in a closing prayer and we'd be dismissed.
Let's pray. Lord God, we praise your name because you are a God who declares and delivers. Lord, when sin entered this world, you declared that you would take care of it, and you did. You promised to Abraham that you would make him a great nation and bless other nations through him, and you've done that. You promised David that his descendants would reign on the throne forever, and you've done that. Lord, you promised forgiveness of sins, and you brought that to us through the death of your Son on the cross. And you followed through with that. Lord, help us to come to realization that you are a God who declares, and follows through, and that if we do so ourselves, we are an image of you. Lord, give us a heart for the lost. Help us to help them to realize that they need your salvation just as much. Lord, one other thing that you've declared is that salvation comes only through your Son, Jesus. So help us to spread that word. Help us to have that heart for the lost and to follow through. Lord, as we leave these doors, go before us. Help us to see where you're at work, and help us to have the courage to join you in that work. Lord, bless us. We pray this in your Son's name. Amen.